Michael Jordan for president? I don't know. He's looking a little presidential up there right now. Of course, he was referring to Kevin Durant last year being inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. And Ramona Shelburne joins me right now. What was your reaction at a little bit of an MJ dig there?
Yeah, look, Michael can't help himself, right? That's Michael.
Oh, he loves it.
I mean, you like that's just like a softball and a tee right there for him. And I think this blossoming relationship though with Westbrook and Michael Jordan is really interesting for me to watch because Westbrook grew up out here in Los Angeles, and I thought the guy that he idolized and wanted to be when he grew up was Kobe Bryant. And so then to hear that now he has a relationship with Kobe and Michael Jordan, that's some pretty rarefied air. You don't really see that amongst younger players. And when you saw that Jordan flew all the way out to Oklahoma City to induct him into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, that speaks to one, the closeness of their business relationship, right? There was a great story on The Undefeated earlier this week about how Russell, in a lot of ways, is going to be the sort of heir apparent, if you will, or the face of Brand Jordan going forward. Most of Brand Jordan is just retro shoes, but in terms of the current players that they have endorsing Brand Jordan, it's Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, and Russell Westbrook. And of that group, looks like it's going to be Russell who takes the lead in terms of being the face of that brand. And so I just think that's an interesting dynamic. Like, I just want to know more about how often they talk, how often do they text. Like, I don't know how much of this was Russell and Michael are so close, and how much is Clay Bennett and Michael Jordan are close, similar to the Thunder. But this is an interesting development in the NBA here.
I think it speaks volumes about the future of this league and who the stars are. And I feel like Kevin Durant's going through such a period of unpopularity right now, especially coming off of the Drake night. And he's just a test to your personality. Russell Westbrook's coming out as a face people are looking at, and I think you and I both know from covering the NBA for a long time, and I covered the Lakers for 5-6 years. A lot of kids don't want to be Kobe. So let's face it. I mean, I think, I kind of loved that Jordan showed up for him in that way, but at the same time, it speaks volumes, like you said, about who he chose to emulate.
Yeah, I mean, Russell and DeMar DeRozan are the two kids that grew up in Los Angeles when Kobe was in his prime. DeMar DeRozan wears number 10 because that was Kobe's Olympic number, right? I mean, that's how much he admired him. Russell grew up in Lawndale. I think that's just about 10 minutes from the Laker practice facility. So they are close, but I think MJ is still the guy that when you have a choice, right?
He's Michael.
Is Michael going to say public comments like this? I mean, about anybody else in the league? Like, you don't really hear Michael Jordan praising current players like he praised Russell Westbrook. You don't hear him say things like that.
Ramona Shelburne from ESPN joining me, Susie Schuster here on the Rich Eisen Show. A lot of talk in Los Angeles, and I loved your column a couple days about the Clippers, the 10-2 start. Are they the best team on paper? Which I said to my husband, I'm like, that's kind of being like a little pregnant. You're either the best team or you're not. And, and it's fascinating to me, having covered the Chris Kaman, Michael Olowokandi Clippers, and when Shaq and Kobe were winning everything. And, when they used to change the floor over, it was like, oh, here come the Clippers, like a bummer after a Lakers game. It's the reversal now. You've got these no-name Lakers, and they're kind of fun to watch. And you've got Chris Paul leading the squad. I loved your idea of and you and the rest of ESPN, did LASIK turn around Chris Paul's year? I mean, are we to now say, like, run out there to your laser eye center because you'll suddenly be raining threes?
Yeah. By the way, it's a great story by Dan Wojcicki in the Orange County Register, when just detailing how Chris Paul faked this for so many years. He memorized the eye chart. I thought that was the greatest detail. He literally memorized all the lines of the eye chart that you usually do, so that he would sort of fake what his vision really was. And then his dad and his brother had this procedure a few years ago, and they kept raving about it. And Chris Paul finally did it. And it was, Chris Paul was a good shooter beforehand. He was a good player beforehand. So there's a part of me that's like, how much of this is because he had LASIK, and how much is just he's having a good start to the season. He's healthy. They lost early, as you remember.
Right.
Blake Griffin and Chris Paul both got hurt in the first round. They were out early. Neither of them played during the summer. So they're coming into the season fresh. Plus, you have a group that's played together. I mean, can you believe this is year 6 of Lob City?
No, I can't.
I feel like I was to play. Presumably, if they're the 2 and 3 seeds, that they knock each other out before you see them in the playoffs. And I think that's really what the Clippers are eyeing with this hot start here.
I mean, can you believe we're talking about this? It's November. We're talking about how far will the Clips go? It's such a Sports Center setup where you're like, okay. And back in the day when I was producing Sports Center and producing bits, I'm like, really? Are we really doing this? Like, it's like the first day of the Major League Baseball system. Are the Angels going to go all the way? It's like, really? It's kind of funny to talk about the Clippers, though, that way, just because of this role reversal in this town.
Yep.
And this is a basketball town so much. What are you seeing in the Lakers that's emerging that makes it interesting to you?
I got to be real with you. I still think it's a Laker town. Like, when you just walk down the street, like, people always want to talk about the Lakers. And, like, all those sports talk radio in L.A., and we'll look at, you see the ratings, right? You talk Lakers, people are interested. Even when they were bad, like, even when they were depressingly bad the last couple of years, people still wanted to talk Lakers. You talk about the Clippers or anybody else, I mean, people start tuning out. It's still a Laker town. And the fact that they're showing any signs of growth, I mean, they're a fun team to watch right now. Like, Luke Walton's got them playing in this sort of fun up and down style. They score a lot of points.
Shall we say that
young guys?
Anything's better than what we've seen?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
I didn't realize how depressing the last 2 years were until you see a team that's like young and plays an exciting style of basketball. You didn't realize how bad that was until you see the contrast, right? Like, because we were so into the Kobe Bryant farewell tour. That movie was this like sad, depressing, nostalgic movie, and it was actually painful to watch. Remember early last year when he was like 3 for 15, and it just didn't look like Kobe. And I know he had a great last game.
Remember when you just couldn't wait for it to be over? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there were nights last year you were like, oh, this is hard to watch. And then D'Angelo Russell and Nick Young had the video, the scandal with the Snapchat, right? I mean, it's like that. The last couple of years were really rough, and so then you have one bit of positive energy. They're 7-5. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. But they get a pretty good dose of cold water when they play the Spurs tonight and then Golden State twice next week. So we'll see how far along they really are.
Ramona Shelburne joining me now here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'm Susie Schuster in for Rich Eisen. The only person happier to see Kristaps Porzingis have a great game than Kristaps had to have been Phil Jackson. He must be so relieved that his Latvian had a great game because it took the pressure off what has been a dismal week for Phil Jackson. And
you know Phil, right? I mean, how much do you think the fallout over his comments on LeBron James affected him?
Here's the deal. He's condescending. He's self-aggrandizing. He can be a pseudo-intellectual. I mean, I covered Phil for a long time, and, he would give me the raised eyebrow. The look down he does. He looks at you kind of condescendingly. And finally, at one point, he asked me where I went to school, and I said Columbia, and he looked at me like, oh, you're not an idiot? So we got along great after that. Look, I don't think Phil meant anything racial. I would say that in 150 degrees, 150%, this was not a racial thing. He can be out of touch. And if that is the case, but do I think he's affected by this? I think he is so annoyed by this, don't you?
Absolutely. You're right on it. I mean, that's what, because to me, Phil, when he does something like this, his reaction is never to go and tweet out a bunch of explanations, go do another interview to do some damage control. He just kind of sits back and laughs. He almost digs in further. And I think the one thing I saw him do on social media was retweet Clarence Gaines' book about where it used the term posse in a positive light. In other words, hey, come on now, you're misinterpreting it. But just looking at Phil's reaction is always he always goes back to his arrogance. He always goes back to his condescending tone, right? He never is going to be defensive. He's never going to go on the offensive there. I mean, he's never going to dig in there. And I think seeing Kristaps have a great game and progress the way he has, it kind of, I see the Knicks right now as two guys who are kind of going to the sunset of their career, right?
Yeah.
Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony. I think Carmelo's got another season or two of elite level play, but you can start to see you'll start to see the decline in another year or two, right? Just age wise, it's the way things go. Phil's obviously been at this for 3 years, and it hasn't gone well so far. And then you have this other movie over here with Derrick Rose trying to prove he deserves a max contract, Joakim Noah trying to live up to the contract he signed, and Kristaps Porzingis saying, "Can somebody throw me the ball? I'm kind of ready for it to be my turn." And I don't know if one or all of them have to step aside for Kristaps to have the kind of career that he needs to have, but every time he has a game like this, it strengthens the argument that they need to revolve their offense around him. They need to make it his team sooner rather than later.
Ramona, I could talk to you all day. I really could.
Too.
Thanks so much for coming on. Hopefully you'll come in studio next time. If you got a little bit of time next time, to let me hop back in the saddle.
Yeah, no, for you, anything.
I appreciate it. Take care so much.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.